From training camp.
If you want a job now, you got to work hard.
To the preseason.
Scampers down to the 32-yard line.
Through the playoffs.
He's in! Touchdown!
And into the offseason.
To be able to get the best players, it's a critical time for us.
It's always Colts season. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen.
2 down, 1 to go. We are inching closer to the end of, I guess, the preseason. Roster cut time, a week and a day away. And what? Are we less than 3 weeks away, Eddie Garrison? Yes. From the season opening up. Good Monday morning to you. That is when we are recording this. I am Kevin Bowen. He is Eddie Garrison. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen. I feel like this time of year, Eddie, I just feel like people have such rich memories, vivid memories of whether it's high school football that starts this weekend here in the state of Indiana. College football is a week away, really in earnest. And then obviously the NFL to follow. You know, temperatures are going to cool down a little bit, but still be great for the next month or so. I just love this time of year. And albeit Saturday night didn't involve the most entertaining football necessarily from a household name standpoint, it does mean we are getting a little bit closer, which I love.
Does Maddie Bowen also love that because that means pumpkin spice is coming out?
Maddie is a big fall fan. She does enjoy a little football on in the background, but she definitely knows that schedule-wise it's going to be a little different for Kevin Bowen. But nonetheless...
Is she a pumpkin spice gal?
She's not like huge into, I think, that particular Starbucks beverage there, but again, she's a big fall fan. She grew up in a football family, so she loves this time of year. I'm hoping that she knows that it's Notre Dame, Texas A&M a week from Saturday.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a drink. Else. It could be a candle.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah,
I didn't know if you guys were candle burners.
She is a big candle. She is definitely a big candle person. So that is a very good point on that. And obviously, we'll recap a little bit from Saturday night. Certainly, I thought there were a couple elements that were extra interesting. Maybe the kicker in the fourth quarter. Maybe the owner in the press spot or the owner in the TV booth. And I thought Nick Cross had a really nice night as well. So we'll hit on some of those. Just mapping out the next week or so. We'll come back with a pod Friday morning. Again, the Colts play Thursday night in Cincinnati. That's their preseason finale. So that pod will be recapping probably starters for a half. And also, that pod needs to be roster cut pod. That needs to be that 53-man roster look. I've got one up on the website right now. And I'll do my final one after that preseason finale. Again, Tuesday, August 27th. That is roster cuts. Just the one big one. 90 to 53. So we'll probably come back next week, midweek, after those roster cuts and do that. And then before you know it, man, it will be here. Anything else on your end before we hit a little Saturday night football action?
No, I was going to just say that we're finally in our preseason mode. After the first preseason game, we didn't do the typical what you liked, what you didn't like, and now we are officially in that preseason category of going over what you liked and what you didn't like now.
They sat so many starters. It's hard to kind of, go off of, hey, this is how the starters looked, obviously. I mean, hell, what? Juju Brents, Nick Cross, the only starters that played?
Matt Gay, technically.
Well, technically, I guess if you want to go to special teams there. So, it's kind of hard to go that pattern. I do want to make sure we mention this briefly. For those that have asked, curious about Fantasy Football League, pick 'em. We'll announce kind of Fantasy Football League stuff maybe next week. I would say it will reward people that listen to the show and listen promptly to the show. And then Eddie's going to try and restart that Pick'em League. So if you've been in it before, hopefully it'll just keep you in the league, and we'll make sure to send out that link, retweet it from my Twitter, Eddie's Twitter as well, so you guys can join that. But yeah, let's go with what I liked first, right? Because that was a win. I thought Adetomiwa Adebawore continued a really strong camp for him. He has been super active. He's been very disruptive. And to me, he right now would be one of your top, if not top, interior rotational rushers. So I think you really like what he did. Isaiah Land continues to put himself into a group, Eddie, of he might be the fifth defensive end. Therefore, it might be hard to get him weekly playing time. But for a second-year, day 3 pick, the arrow is pointing up. You just find a spot for him and worry about it later. I don't think I had him on my 53 that I just posted. And if I had to make one change for my final roster cut later this week. I'm going to find a way for Isaiah Land to be on the team. So I thought he had a couple moments really in the pass rush and in the run game, which I think stands out. I thought it was good to see Jalen Carlisle just back on the field. Mm-hmm. We actually had Purdue head football coach Ryan Walters on our morning show today. For those curious why I'm bringing that up, he recruited Jalen Carlisle as a defender to Missouri back in the day when a lot of teams were recruiting Carlisle as a wideout. So it's kind of interesting to hear Walters spoke very glowingly of the type of player and really type of person that Jalen Carlisle is. And I thought in general the run game was better. Mm-hmm. The run game was very poor in the season opener or the preseason opener. So Xavier Scott, Tyler Goodson had a couple nice runs. And then fourth quarter, I thought Laquan Treadwell made a few catches. I don't think Ashton Doolin's name should be written in Sharpie on this football team. He's missed now a week plus.
I do have a thought on that.
And I just think your sixth wideout is up in the air. Is it Doolin? Is it DJ Montgomery? Is it Laquan Treadwell? That I think is something to keep in mind. Do you keep six? If you're keeping 5 tight ends, are you keeping 6 wideouts? Something to ponder. Your thought on Ashton Doolin?
So in that first preseason game, you and I both made note of Alec Pierce playing the gunner role on special teams after that game. And, typically sometimes you see that kind of stuff in the preseason. And I was like, oh, let's just throw that guy out there if you need him in a pinch. Well, maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into the tea leaves here. Could that be a replacement for Ashton Doolin on special teams? And they were seeing how he would do in that sort of role, considering there's a chance that his snaps in terms of a wide receiver can come down dramatically compared to last season.
Yeah, that is a really good thought, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I do think that as you start to get a little bit more into roster cuts, who the Colts gunners are, I don't have that answer. In years past, it's like Tony Brown. Remember, Tony Brown was given as a gunner. Amir Speed is a name that I think of. I'm like, wait, is he definitely on the team? Is he not on the team? Where are you at with a guy like Trevor Denbo? So, yeah, I think it's something worth bringing up on Doolin. I just don't think he's written in Sharpie. He's battled the hamstring. It's not the ACL. The ACL obviously ended last season, so something to point out. And I would say lastly, individually, hat tip to Nick Cross. Now, what I find interesting about Nick Cross playing the entire first quarter on Saturday night and playing well is, he did that at strong safety. And I think we all have reached a point in the month of August. The Colts are keeping this in-house. They're not doing anything outside of the building. So now the question becomes this. If it's going to be in-house, what's your best combination at safety? Julian Blackmon just had a career year at strong safety. That is a very communicative position for Gus Bradley. It's a position that obviously Julian thrived in last year. Mm-hmm. He played free safety his first 3 seasons. When camp has unfolded, Nick Cross has been working mostly at free safety, the back end of the defense. Blackmon, again, has been up towards the line of scrimmage at strong safety. But what we saw Saturday was Cross playing well at strong safety. Now, I don't know how much we hit on this on last week's pod, Eddie, but the Wednesday night joint session with Arizona, I guess we didn't hit on this, so I'm glad that I'm bringing it up. Julian Blackmon, there were moments I'm watching practice, I'm like, wait a minute. He was just a strong safety the snap prior. Now he's a free safety. There were a couple of those times. And tell me I have rose-colored glasses on. That is intriguing to me by the Colts. Julian Blackmon, game to game, drive to drive, snap to snap, lining up in different spots, makes me intrigued. It makes me, dare I say, excited about some of the thoughts that could be different this season defensively.
Now, what about that makes you excited or intrigued?
I think there's been too many times where C.J. Stroud or Trevor Lawrence can come to the line of scrimmage, Eddie, and he knows, 20 is that type of safety. 32 is that type of safety. And they know every single snap. Mm-hmm. You don't disguise. You don't have a variety of roles, again, within a series, within a game. To me, it's just too vanilla, the Colts defense. So I bring that up to say, is this a little different? Are they going to say, hey, we want you, not to have just an exact notion of, okay, this is where the Colts are going to do week in and week out. We do what we do better than, we play fast, et cetera, to the whistle. So I just think that is something to keep an eye on. And the other thought is, Would you rather the most trustworthy safety be in the position where if you make a mistake, the error is fatal? The error at free safety is fatal.
Yeah.
The error at strong safety is a paper cut. So would you rather Nick Cross be in the paper cut zone and Julian Blackmon be in the death? Not to sound too dramatic there, but you know what I'm getting at.
Explosive?
Well, yeah, something could explode on your body, I guess. Yes. Explosive works well. Again, if you make the mistake on the back end, 15 becomes 50. If you make the mistake on the front end at strong safety, 5 becomes 15. So, like, that I think is a question that you have to have. So, just something to note. Now, again, we'll get in. I know there's some Twitter questions in regards to safety and, Justin Simmons and all that stuff. So, I'll kind of hold some additional safety thoughts off until that. But I think you got to like what Nick Cross has shown a little bit. Now, as far as the negative category, I was good at Juju Brents playing. I was good at Dayo Dengbo playing. I'm good with guys that have been injured that are now healthy to get them game reps. You obviously didn't love the early DPI for Brents. I don't think you loved, if I counted this right, I thought I had 4 guys on my 53-man roster get hurt. Now, we'll see the severity of them, but Juju Brents with a nose. Jelani Woods exits after 4 snaps with a toe. Josh Sills on the offensive line had an ankle injury. Also, there were some shaky moments besides that. And then Tanner Bortolini, I think, had a toe injury, and he left early. So I bring that up to say this, Eddie. It's August 19th as we record this. August 27th is roster cuts. Any injury between now and Tuesday is magnified.
Yeah.
Any injury. So you've got to watch this Thursday night, guys. I mean, yes, you're going to want to watch the starters, but like a 3-week injury could be huge. So just something to keep an eye on with that. Boy, I saw both offensive tackles getting beat. Again,
Gonzalez and Blake Freeland?
Yeah, I just worry about depth big time there, man.
Especially with the injury history of one of them, Braden Smith.
Well, sure, yeah. But, even Ryman missed a couple games last year. But, yes, especially Smith. Anthony Gould had the fumble, as he tried to get upfield. You just don't love ball security with a guy that could be a returner. And then you can't not mention Matt Gay. Eddie, he missed from 53 and 44. And let's overanalyze the kicks because welcome to the preseason and welcome to how we treat kickers.
Yes, sir.
Matt Gay last season was 61% from 50 yards or longer. I want to say league average was 68%. So he was a below average long distance kicker, and he's making $22 million across 4 years. That is not good. So let's start there. You need better return on your investment. I walked out of Grand Park, 12 practices at Grand Park. I cannot recall a kicker, and Vinatieri might fall into this boat, kicking as little as Matt Gay did in camp. It was very odd to me. Now, part of me is like, wait, were they drilling kick return, kickoff so much because that's your special teams focus because it's a new play, field goal, it's not, you don't really need to drill some of that. But then you watch them in the preseason and you say, all 3 misses are left. Both those misses Saturday were right hash left misses. That's a big hook. You got to hook it a whole lot to miss it. Now, the golfer in me would say this. I'd rather miss it one way than miss it both ways.
That's true.
So theoretically, you kind of have one fix. Whereas if you're missing it both ways, you're like, holy shit, I'm done.
It could lead to overcorrection, though.
Sure. Obviously, it's not all positives. But,
right.
And then Saturday, he didn't have his holder. Shout out to Rigoberto Sanchez and his wife Cynthia welcoming their second daughter.
Congratulations.
Into the world. So Spencer Schrader, who obviously is the other kicker and has never held, he is your holder. Now, again, my overanalyzation will come here. The 53-yarder, I watched all the extra points. They all look fine. The 53-yarder, laces are in. Matt Gay is patting Spencer Schrader on the helmet after the missed kick like it was his first at-bat in Little League and the arrow's only going to go up from here. The 44-yarder, no laces in. No padding of Spencer Schrader's helmet. It was like, oh, shit, that was my fault. And it was a camera pan to Shane Steichen. And I know Shane's comments after the game where he's a pro, he'll be fine. There was no he's a pro, he'll be fine in that face.
That was 30 seconds left in the game.
I love that they sent him out there.
Yeah.
I thought very smart. And the fact that you send him out there, Eddie, doesn't that tell you a lot about what you think right now? You could have sent the undrafted kid, have Jason Bean hold, have Keaton Slovis hold, something like that. So the question becomes this, Eddie. What do you do? What do you do with him? Kickers are weird. There's a mental component to it that you can't ignore. So my thought is this. You put a kicker on the practice squad. It's a 16-person practice squad. You find a kicker you like, you put him on there. I don't think you want to do anything too more than that. I don't think Matt Gay should lose his job, but it can go with kickers, and it can get mental. And I just don't think you want to be blank out of luck. So that's my thought with it.
And if you were curious about any kickers that could be on the street, Brandon McManus and Reggie Bullock are the two that are left.
Yeah, and are there some young, Schrader? I mean, I watched Schrader a lot in Notre Dame. It's not like he was a great kicker by any means. He definitely had a leg, but he was very inconsistent. But I just think you don't want to be caught with your pants down, and so that is kind of where I'm at in regards to what you do at kicker right now. It's not an ideal situation. Certainly, you're not getting the return on investment that you would want at all from him. So you just got to keep an eye on it. But people have asked me a lot, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? That's probably what I do. And I think that to me is a somewhat safe, not overreacting to the point of now Matt Gay's wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And for the most part, Matt Gay was a very solid kicker inside of 50 yards last year. It's not like he missed 7 extra points or anything like that. So that's where I'm not alarmist to that degree. But, in today's NFL, man, I mean, what did I say to you? 68%? Kicks north of 50 last year? I mean, 52, 53-yarders are, you got better than 50-50 chance of making it.
Those are starting to become more regular.
Right.
And more routine.
And, 7 of 9 games are outdoors. You December games, and he kicked great, remember, in the Baltimore Rain game?
Mm-hmm.
So
3 50-yarders, right? Or was it 4?
God, it might have been 4. I think it was 4. That was certainly a negative, and obviously I think it'd be wise for him to kick coming up on Saturday night. Jason Bean getting in before Keaton Slovis, does that mean anything? Is he a practice squad guy?
He's an interesting case study.
He might be this would be year 4 of Sam Ehlinger as your third stringer.
Yes.
You don't find many of that in the NFL. You don't find many QBs that literally are your third stringers for 4 straight years. So, that's something just to keep an eye on, I guess.
And Jason Bean has the invite to the UFL, right?
Yes. Yeah. He does. And then last thing I would add before we get to Twitter questions was, did you see Jim Irsay in the booth?
I did not, but I heard some of the comments on the morning show with you and Andy.
Jim Irsay in the booth, third quarter, with Greg Rakestraw, Rick Venturi, Larry Overton. Great call, per usual, from that crew. When Irsay spoke at training camp this year, Eddie, I thought he was rather tame for Jim Irsay. I didn't think you got typical hyperbolic Jim Irsay. You got the hyperbolic Jim Irsay Saturday night.
Yeah.
You go back to Chris Ballard, Jeff Saturday, Jim Irsay sitting up there in a press conference just hours after Frank Reich had been fired and Jeff Saturday had been mentioned interim. Somebody in the press conference asked Jim Irsay specifically about Chris Ballard, and I believe at one point we got an analogy of even Michael Jordan missed shots. The reference to Chris Ballard Saturday night, and I guess we have our answer for is Chris Ballard on the hot seat, was everybody knows Chris Ballard, he's a blue chip general manager. Now,
that concerning.
Ask me that in a minute. The definition of blue chip, I think for the most part, people are familiar with. I don't think blue chip is one playoff win in 7 years, one of your longest playoff win, division, title, just in general playoff drought streaks you've had in your franchise's certainly recent history.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're talking late 80s, early 90s current playoff droughts. Again, whether you want to say win, divisions, appearances, et cetera, that to me does not scream blue chip at all. To me, I think Chris Ballard has been an average to below average GM. But as the young kids would say it, Jim Irsay was feeling himself Saturday night. Don Shula comp for Shane Steichen. I believe the caveat there was I don't want to put any pressure on him, but here's 328 wins in the all-time winningest coach in NFL history. What did you just ask me? Does that make you feel what?
Concerned.
It's a great question. I'd answer it with a question, and that would be this, Eddie. Is that how Jim Irsay also feels behind the scenes? Or does Jim Irsay view this annual preseason appearance as, this is my State of the Union, for lack of a better phrase?
And a way for me to sell tickets?
And a way for me just to sell. Yes, tickets for sure, but just sell us as a franchise. And sell my guys. What did he call Chris Ballard in January 2017? The greatest GM hire of the 21st century. He doesn't want him to fail. No. He doesn't want that at all.
So greatest GM in 21st century and Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan missed shots. I believe Michael Jordan lost games is another reference. I didn't know if he was referencing the White Sox era, the Birmingham Barons era, or Michael Jordan,
call.
or if he, I didn't get clarity on that. Blue chip GM. Because to answer the question that I just threw back to you, Eddie, would be this. People in positions of authority, you can have belief in your people, but you cannot let that cloud when enough is enough, or when the results have not gotten you as a business, as a franchise, to where you need to. Because none of the results scream blue chip GM. None of them. So I don't know. I don't know, man. It's it honestly made me think for a second there. Like I remember one time in Spanish class in high school, the teacher kept on complimenting me in front of the class for how well I did on a project. And after about 10 to 15 seconds of her complimenting me, I'm thinking, oh no, she's talking about the other Kevin. If I'm Chris Ballard listening to Jim Irsay Saturday night, I'm thinking to myself, damn, I love that. Is he talking about me though? Does he think he's still talking about Bill Polian? Because Bill Polian would qualify as blue chip GM, a royal blue GM for Bill Polian into the Hall of Fame. So I just, boy, I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. So, yeah, Irsay, certainly in Irsay form Saturday night. Anything else, Eddie Garrison, before we hit the Twitter sphere?
Actually, yes.
Ooh.
We haven't had a pod since the 2 joint practices with the Arizona Cardinals. You made reference to the practices earlier and that how we didn't have a podcast since. Just kind of your thoughts from what you witnessed in those 2 joint practices. I know it was sun-splashed and beautiful on Wednesdays, and then Thursdays was a polar opposite in a monsoon.
Yeah, I would say this. The Colts were definitely the better team over the course of 2 days. It wasn't perfect by any means. Part of me thought Anthony Richardson threw 13 passes in those 2 games. 13 passes. Or in those 2 joint practices. I'm like,
I thought he looked great in the first one.
Yeah, I just don't walk away from 13 passes in 2 days and think that, that's just enough work.
Right.
I mean, and again, this is more of a general NFL thought I'm throwing out there, but it's like, and especially the Thursday one. Thursday was, it was steady rain.
What's your opinion on them practicing in that weather?
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that's like, look at Baltimore last year. Look at San Francisco a couple years ago. 7 of 9 games are outside this year. 7 of 9 road games are outdoors. You play in Denver. You play in Foxborough. You play in New York twice. Certainly that can make sense. Anthony Richardson didn't get a play in the Baltimore game last year when it rained. So there was an element of I agreed with that. I think, and this is me looking at the radar too Thursday night, I don't think anybody thought it'd last as long as it did. I think it looked like it would kind of pass through a little bit earlier. Honestly, looking back on it, what they should have done, and I think they would have had enough daylight, they should have just postponed it 45 minutes. And then got to a 6:45 start time. You still have enough daylight till 8:30. You could then practice, barely in the rain. Your warm-ups would have been in the rain. That would have been it there. So I just, because part of me is like, you do walk away from that and you're like, damn, I mean, you might play in those conditions this season. So, yeah, I that was just kind of my general thought on the practices. But again, I thought the Colts were the spirit team. I thought Richardson, after struggling big time in the rain early Thursday, put the right glove on and was great the rest of practice. Defensively, I thought the pass rush was active. I thought your secondary struggled definitely Wednesday, better Thursday. I think the weather helped them. And just in general, Arizona's a top 10 drafting team. So you want to walk away as a better team.
Yes.
And I thought for the most part, you were no fights, maybe one skirmish. So behavior
That was on the first play.
very, very strong there. So you didn't have anything on that end. So yeah, all in all, I'd say pretty good.
Yeah, DJ Dallas was returning a kick. It was like the first thing they did, team on team. And
Grant Stewart involved, right?
Yeah, I can't remember who he. I think he just pummeled right over Isaiah Land, and then Grant Stewart was like, "Yeah, dude, come on, seriously."
Yeah, it's no shock that Grant Stewart was involved in that.
And then there was another one, as you like to always say, up, up, up. I can't remember who on Arizona's defense brought down. I think I can't remember who it was. It was one of the running backs. I think it might have been Tyler Goodson or something. And Shane Steichen wasn't too pleased. He started yelling at Arizona like, "Come on, guys."
Yeah, I thought for the most part, and credit to Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, I thought teams really behaved well. And the Colts, I think, have had pretty good joint practice behavior and their opponents here in recent years. I know that can be such a popular topic around the NFL. So there's recaps from both those practices up on our website, 1075thefan.com. Eddie, unless you got anything else, let's hop into Twitter questions.
7 Twitter questions to get to. We will start with Rodney. He says the Broncos, Saints, and 49ers all played their starting quarterbacks multiple drives in Game 2 despite having joint practices earlier in the week. Not saying it's black and white, but I would have liked to have seen Anthony Richardson get a lot more reps in these games. Can't stress enough how important game reps are. Justin, I can't even say that word. There's too many D's in there. Addendum?
Sure. That sounds good to me.
It's like a tongue twister for me.
Yeah, that is.
Justin, addendum to the pod question I already proposed.
Yeah, I love the comment right there for Rodney of you can't stress how important Game 1 is.
I even practiced that word like 5 times before the podcast. And I was like, I don't want to screw it up, and I still screwed it up.
I certainly have those instances many times. Cannot stress how important Game 1 is. It's just different. It is just different. And, this is a and I would have to look back, Eddie. I don't know. Did the Broncos, Saints, and Niners have joint practices this week? It just seems like the NFL is operated like this. If we have joint practices, we're not playing our starters. I mean, it's not just the Colts. The Cardinals didn't play their starters. You go back to the Bears didn't play their starters. Like that's
Bears did. Oh,
last year. I mean last year. When the Colts did that. So it's like when they have the multiple days of joint practices, then they don't do it. So it's just weird. I mean, I was looking up the other day. In year 2, in his second NFL season, Andrew Luck threw 23 passes in a preseason game.
Wow.
As my stomach is growling thinking about that. I mean, that is crazy to think about it nowadays. So, he's going to get a full half, it sounds like, on Thursday, which I think is very key. But, yeah, I do think it's something that you would like to see more. I'm a big rep guy, but it's just kind of how the league operates, and I would say Shane Steichen operates on the safer side of it, if you want to label, kind of more intense versus not. I would say he's much more of a sports science-centric guy, but, so much of the Richardson and rust, I just think has to come off in game settings.
I agree with you. I think this third one's important just because of the aspect of you have 17 days between the third game and the first regular season game.
Right. And now some would counter that and say 17 days, that's such a long time. How is that going to carry over to week 1? I can listen to both sides of it, but I just think specific with Richardson. I mean, look at Bo Nix right now. Bo Nix played 61 games in college.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson's played 17 since his high school prom.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even compare the two, So, yes, to answer the question, Rodney, I'd like to see more playing time in general, but I think it's more of a league-wide thing.
So what do they do with Matt Gay? Is from Flippin'.
Can I turn that back to you?
No.
I kind of gave my answer earlier. Practice squad kicker. I don't know what else you do. I again, maybe kick a little bit more. I thought he kicked really less here in training camp, and he's obviously missed the 3. There's some sort of left thing going on here with the 3 misses all left.
Didn't Brian Mason say he's just like swinging around the ball or not swinging through it or something?
I know. It just sounds like, yeah. I don't have great answers, I guess is why I pause and I try to flip it on you, Eddie. My answer is I'd throw somebody on the practice squad. What would you do? You do anything, or you just sit there and think we're lighting money on fire by paying that man that much money?
I mean, you're lighting money on fire either way, because, I mean, you're going to have to pay him, and I don't think you're going to release him just because of the money that would leave behind at that spot. Like, I don't know. Ballard seems to stick with his guys no matter what. I mean,
and I'm not in the cut mode. I don't think I'm. No. I'm not there, but I am in a position of like, how can you find a little bit of balance? Because again, I think when it goes with kickers, it can really go. Remember Gay had the hip issue a little bit last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any physical ailment here? I just, yeah, I don't have a great read on it, clearly.
Tyler is up next. Hey, KB, do you feel Shane Steichen's decision to not give Anthony Richardson live reps on Saturday speaks to their confidence in his abilities, or are they just not wanting to risk injury, or maybe both? I know it's been said many times and it goes without saying, but any reps the Colts can give him would be meaningful and beneficial. Also, what would your top 3 bucket list golf courses you wish to play one day be? As always, enjoy the content immensely and appreciate all that you guys do.
Hey now.
Well, Augusta National is 1, right?
Is it 1, 2, and 3? Yeah, Augusta National, Pine Valley, and then, I don't know, Pebble or St. Andrews, something like that. I know those are very cheesy, generic answers, but
not the one where they play the U.S. Open and is that
Pinehurst?
Yeah.
That would be high up on the list as well. Yeah, that would be. But I mean, I just got to go with Tyler. He only gave me 3 here. To go back to the Richardson front.
You proud of me for knowing a golf tournament outside the Masters? There?
I know. I was like, who is this Eddie Garrison? I guess we kind of answered it in the first one, but go back to week 1 with Richardson. So far, that's all we can go off of. Game reps since he got hurt. And it's 7 plays. So much of the misses, because he was 2 of 4, but in reality, to me, he was more like 1 of 4. So much of those misses can only be repped in the game settings. Like, it's just, your accuracy in practice is going to be different because you're not going to get hit. And it's just different.
Yeah.
And even for a guy in Richardson's case, who obviously is huge, 6'4" and 260, and can certainly take hits, or physically he's not he's not some 5'9", 180-pound dude running back there. So that to me I think is what is so difficult to try and achieve, because those reps to me, the timing, the ball placement, it can only be repped in true game-like settings.
Like that third down to Kylan Granson that was completed.
Exactly, and that's the 2 of 4 that to me is really 1 of 4, because that ball just had no chance. And again, that is also progressing through your reads and throwing with anticipation. And to me, the game reps is exactly what you have to find out, because 90% of his reps in practice are against guys he knows.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the Juju Brentzes, the Kenny Moores, the Julian Blackmon. Like, he just knows their natural tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Week 1, obviously, he's not going to know those guys. That's why I think testing yourself out, even tomorrow in the joint session with Cincinnati, is beneficial, because there's an unknown factor on both sides of the ball with this. But that, to me, I think is just, it has to be in game reps, which, if you go back, I'd have to go, I want to say the Philly preseason game last year, he had a lot of improvements from the Buffalo preseason game last year. So I am anxious to see him Thursday night, certainly, and just to see exactly what that looks like there.
I'm also fascinated to see if Cincinnati will opt to play any of their starters,
right, because they have not been a big play of Burrow at all.
And he played the first drive in their first game and went down and scored a touchdown, and then that was it.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic that Cincinnati will want to play their starters, but Obviously, we'll wait and see how this week plays out.
Joint practice, by the way, Tuesday at 2:20 between the Colts and the Bengals. Next question is from the best name on the face of the earth. Eddie.
No, of course.
If you think Blake Freeland played himself out of a roster spot, and if you think this new Jelani Woods toe injury is the final nail in the coffin for his time with the Colts.
Injuries in the next 8 days are tricky. 4 plays and he exits. He's been really healthy all offseason. I think we got to mention that. I don't think he's missed one day in front of us. Something that I've thought about with Jelani Woods is because right now, I think I bitched you all along. To me, and you saw this, I guess Ogletree did play on Saturday, right?
Yes.
Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Grants, and Drew Ogletree are on the football team. So now it comes down to 4 and 5. How much should we factor in Will Mallory got drafted by this coaching staff and not Jelani Woods?
That's a good point. Also, Mallory has been injury prone since they've drafted him.
Certainly. But
hamstring and foot.
Let's just focus there for a second. How much should we factor in this coaching staff drafted Will Mallory? Ballard loves himself some Jelani Woods. But now I know they're drafted 2 rounds apart, so I don't want to act like it's exactly apples to apples, but, it's different. Coaching staff to coaching staff. So that's something that you have to factor in here. I think I still, depending on this toe injury, I think I still would have Woods on the team. And if they really wanted to keep 5 tight ends, I think they probably could. But again, are you at the mercy of an Isaiah Land? Are you at the mercy of a 6 wideout might be off the team? And so much of this, I do think, is a popularity contest to a degree.
Yeah.
Who can you sneak through? Does more of the NFL world see Jelani Woods? Or is there some of the NFL world that sees Will Mallory? I mean, he did have the fastest 40 of any tight end in the combine 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's where you get into this. Who is easier to sneak through waivers and all this? So, again, I'm very torn on it. Clearly, the Colts are torn on it. They play those guys for a reason on Saturday night. But I would still probably give the slightest edge to Woods, but I don't say that with abundance of confidence. You'll see in my 53-man roster projection, my latest one, I have kept 4 and a cut of Mallory.
Mm-hmm.
But I also kept Ellinger on the 53, which, again, rule change this year. You can have your 3rd quarterback on the practice squad. Now, the question becomes, if you think that highly of Ellinger, Ellinger's 1 play away from being the backup. If you want to do your depth chart. Do you want to risk that guy to waivers? Do you have room on your 53? So if you think you don't care about that, you can get Ellinger to the practice squad. That opens up a spot on my current breakdown for the extra tight end. But again, I don't have Isaiah Land on it right now. So this is just some of the gymnastics that they're going to have to sift through over the next 8 days.
I think you have to look at, from their perspective, just like the backup quarterback market as it is. Like, a team that could make some sense would possibly be Minnesota, that could be in the market for a backup just because they lost J.J. McCarthy and their other backup right now is Jaron Hall. But outside of that, you just have to really examine if there's a team out there that you think would pick him up and then put him on the 53 as the starting backup. I don't know if that's the case.
How much did the Brown situation last year awaken the rest of the NFL world? So we'll see. I'm going to do an article up on the website here, Eddie, coming up probably tomorrow. That'll be Tuesday. 10 roster cut-down questions for the Colts. And the Ellinger one is one of them. Now, part of me watches Jason Bean get in before Slovis on Saturday and thinks, Jason Bean on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
You carried 4 QBs on your entire roster when you factor in practice squad plus 53? Yeah, I mean, that to me doesn't seem like the craziest idea. So just a couple things to watch here in the next 8 days.
Yeah, Ellinger, former 6th-round pick. I mean, as you said, you're number 4.
Yeah, you don't see that very often.
Handful of Twitter questions left. Aaron says, it's a philosophical question from me today. If you could only have one for the Colts defense, would it be a dominant front 4 or a top 3 secondary?
Oh, the front. Yeah. I want to disrupt as close to the quarterback as possible. Yeah. I want to disrupt as close to possible. If the rush doesn't get home, it's still asking so much out of your secondary to defend for 4, 5, 6 seconds. It's just even great ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to do. I do want to get a little bit more into safety here because I know the Justin Simmons signing with Atlanta was a dominant topic last week. And, I've said to you often in regards to safety, Eddie, what about a Mike Adams? What about a Mike Mitchell? What about a Rodney McLeod? It doesn't have to be Justin Simmons. But again, what about a single or a double?
Micah Hyde and Keanu O'Neal are available at the strong safety spot.
So you don't have, yes, Quandre Diggs and Justin Simmons, yeah, they're here. But again, just upgrade the competition. And, we kind of got in this debate with some of my colleagues over the week, I guess last week when Simmons signed. It's like, do they value safety? Well, I kind of think they do, right? Malik Hooker was a first-round pick. Khari Willis, they traded up for. Nick Cross, they traded up for. They traded a future third-round pick for Nick Cross. You know how many times Chris Ballard has traded up in his drafting career?
Gotta be like a select.
I think he's traded
Taylor.
back. I want to say it's 4 times or maybe even 5 times more than he's traded up.
Taylor and Cross are the only two that come to mind.
Khari.
Oh, yeah. And Khari, yeah.
Weirdly,
So
I think
3.
Tyquan Lewis might have been like a couple pick trade up. But anyways, it hasn't happened very often. That's why I bring that up. So think about that, Eddie. Hooker, round 1. Khari Willis, you trade up for round 4. Willis was a significant trade up. I think it was like 20-some spots. Julian Blackmon coming off an Achilles. Coming off an ACL. You still drafted him in round 3. And then, of course, Nick Cross at the trade up. That's 4 top 4 round safeties. Hooker in the middle of round 1 in his drafting history. To me, that's somewhat notable. I get they haven't spent big money on the re-signing. Granted, who would they have re-signed kind of in that era? It's not like they had a lot of, Hooker was the one debate there. So my thing is this. You had, to me, Eddie, there's 4 boxes to check at safety for the Colts right now. 4 boxes. I think we're forgetting about all 4. And I should say this. There's 4 boxes to check in the secondary is how I should better word it. 1 box is Nick Cross being good at football. That's only one of the 4 boxes. There's 3 other boxes. The other box, in regards to Nick Cross being good at football, is Juju Brents and Jalen Jones being good at football. That box still needs to be checked. Again, some flashes there, certainly, out of those 2 as rookies.
Juju just being on the field needs to be checked.
Well, hear me out. Okay? 1 box is Nick Cross good at football. 2nd box is Juju and Jalen Jones being good at football. Boxes 3 and 4 are the health boxes. One of them is Juju, the point you just brought up, and the other one is Julian Blackmon.
Yeah.
So you have 4 boxes. Right now we're so inundated into this Nick Cross bubble. We forget that there's still 3 other layers to the secondary.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where, again, I come back to corner and safety. Why not the other moves? And it's not, every team has holes. Certainly, every team has holes. This quote-unquote hole is there with north of $20 million in cap space. That is what is confusing, arguably maddening to me of the why behind it of, you went 6 picks in the draft before drafting a defensive back in April. And now you're sitting on, nearly $30 million. All of that, to me, is just cue me scratching the head.
I know you're not a big believer in this, and I know there are some fans that are when it comes to Ballard in terms of him and trying to prove people right. This reminds me of him, sticking with the wide receiver group from last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago before they drafted Josh Downs, and then he goes out and drafts Downs. After the year, he's like, I didn't do a good enough job, yada, yada. And it's like you, Stephen Holder, and all the other guys that have a tab on the beat are hammering the secondary, and he sticks to it. Is there a little bit of that going on here? It's him having the belief in his guys when it's not warranted and nobody else seems, or he doesn't seem to realize that?
It's a totally fair question. And look, we're human beings. We all want to believe in the people that we believe in. We all want to stick by them. We all want our decisions to look good. Yeah. And I speak for everybody. That is the human race, and it's pretty universal, I would think. When you are in these positions of authority, though, in regards, especially, let's just talk in the football world, it is so vital to the future of your business, the future of your franchise, that you know when to cut bait. That is so, if Kevin Pritchard held on for Turner and Sabonis a little longer, Tyrese
gosh.
Halliburton's not here.
Right.
And, it's so vital for a franchise. If I don't even know who the quarterback would have been, but if they would have gone from Matt Ryan to Band-Aid one more year, Anthony Richardson's not here. If they would have kept on doing that song and dance. So that is why at times I thought Ryan Gregson struggled with that, of just knowing when enough is enough with your personnel. And because it's egg on, you bring egg on your face.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Kevin Pritchard had to admit, guys, I'm sorry, Turner, Sabonis together in the starting lineup, not going to work.
And imagine if he did, he's probably not here.
Right. Even though for 3 years, I don't know how long they tried it, they obviously thought that it was going to work. So that's what makes this difficult. And Ballard does not, and I say this in all seriousness, Ballard does not strike me as an individual whose ego is so big that he is going to stand by his guys at all cost. He doesn't strike me as that. I say that in all seriousness. I think there are some people in positions of authority around the NFL that do fall into that boat.
Yeah.
I really don't think he's that. So that's why I use the word frustrating and maddening, Eddie, because I don't have I can't put the Chris Ballard hat on and answer that question with conviction on why he's doing what he's doing it in the secondary. I don't, he was on with JMV, our afternoon host last week. He brought up the Pittsburgh game with Nick Cross. JMV brought up the Houston game to end the year. Ballard counters with the Pittsburgh game. 3 weeks earlier, Colts, beat Pittsburgh inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Cross had a really impressive interception in that game. So it's like JMV makes his case, Ballard counters with his case, and I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, wait, are we not going to mention the Atlanta game the next week? When an entirely healthy Colts defense gets absolutely run up and down the field by Taylor Heineke and the Falcons, a Falcons team that scored their most points of the season that Christmas game
with Taylor Heineke,
and we're talking long drives, 70-yard drives routinely. Yes, Blackman gets hurt midway through the game, but it's like, wait a minute here. All this is just not adding up of like, we're going to stick to one Pittsburgh game with Mitch Trubisky as what we're believing in and what we're like, yeah, woo. I'm like, no, it just, it does not make sense to me.
Like not even just with the secondary, like the defensive end, like the belief still in Kwity Paye. I mean, I understand he looks better from a physique standpoint, but I mean, the proof has not been in the pudding. And they pick up the 5th-year option, and Max Milling brings up a great point here. Next Twitter question. I don't get why Chris Ballard won't sign a veteran safety or corner. If Anthony Richardson is the real deal, you will need better secondary play to make a real push for the Super Bowl. If Richardson doesn't work out, Ballard is gone anyways, so it's irrelevant for him to keep the cap clean. So in no scenario, it makes sense to just roll with the DBs you have. Thanks in advance. Big fan from Germany. And in that regard, Jim Irsay, by the way, on that...
Germany!
Yeah. I was going to say, on the Super Bowl front there, Irsay said with Greg Rakestraw and Rick Venturi on the telecast about the importance of winning big with your quarterback on the rookie deal.
I feel like I've mentioned pretty much everything I can, safety related, but I will add this. Your schedule is not a college football schedule. Purdue has Indiana State a week from Saturday. Indiana has Florida International a week from Saturday. This is where I insert Notre Dame as Texas A&M, excuse me. Anyways, most teams have your directional school. Weeks 1, week 2, etc. NFL ain't that. Go back to, was it Rodney that asked us earlier? I can't stress how big week 1 is. I mean, it is huge. So this goes back to Ballard's comments at the start of the preseason, Eddie, at the start of training camp. We might have some growing pains. The growing pains hurt a lot more if that loss is to Houston.
Oh, yeah.
A lot more than if it's FIU and the FIU quarterback throws for 290, but you still win by 17.
Mm-hmm.
It just... So that's another layer to it, but I don't know. I feel like I've answered enough about it. I'm ready to move on.
We've got one Twitter question left, and I have one question I want to throw in here before we get to this fun one to round out the podcast. Is there an update on Raekwon Davis?
None on our end. The thing about Raekwon is, he participated in the spring. So this had to have developed, post-spring before camp. It's not like and obviously he would have had to sign a physical at the signing, back in the spring. So there's not. I know there is some distant optimism that he might practice this week. But if he doesn't go this week, Eddie, now we're officially on, what does this mean for the roster? A lot of people, when I did my roster cut, were like, why are you keeping Taven Bryan over Isaiah Land? If you don't have Raekwon Davis, you got to keep Taven Bryan.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, what's your depth of defensive tackle?
That's true.
So that, again, these are some of the things you got to start thinking about. And we'll get more into that later in the week.
Rich, round us out in terms of the Twitter questions. Rank these following in order of most likely to least likely. Number 1, Anthony Richardson, 4,000 total yards and 30 total touchdowns. Number 2, Jonathan Taylor, 2,000 total yards and 15 touchdowns. Number 3, Laiatu Latu, 40-plus pressures. Number 4, the defense creates 25-plus turnovers.
Who's this from?
Rich.
Rich. Those are some rich little outcomes there. Boy, those are big. All right, he wants to rank them in the order of most likely
to least likely.
Rich, I'm going to start with that last one. They had to have been close to 25-plus turnovers last year. I mean, 25-plus, we all can do the math. I mean, that's, 1.5 a game? That seems very doable. So I'll go there first. If I had to pick the next one, oh boy, there's a big drop. Let me just say that from A to B, or from 1 to 2 here. If Richardson's healthy, I know. A would be very doable. The 4,000 yards and how many touchdowns? Was it 30 touchdowns?
Last year the Colts had 24. Last year the Colts had 24.
Turnovers?
Yeah, 24 turnovers.
Oh, so yeah, definitely going to go with D as the most likely. I'll go with the Richardson one as next. There's a huge caveat of it if healthy, but still.
Literally half the NFL had over 25 turnovers.
Yeah, that one seems, easily is number 1. I'll go with the Richardson one too. Boy, Taylor and Latu, 40-plus pressure is a big number. That's top 5 in the league. Gosh, do running backs get to 2,000 total yards? Hell, the 15 touchdowns might be the crazy. Because, touchdowns can get so finicky on the goal line.
Yes, especially now with Anthony Richardson.
Right. So I'll say the turnovers of 25, easily number 1, then a drop to Richardson, then a drop, and I'll go with Latu. Let's go with Latu ahead of Taylor. I don't know if I agree with that. That was a good one by Rich.
I'd probably go Richardson first. Second, I would probably go
Richardson over the turnovers?
Yeah, and here's why.
I mean, you need Richardson to be pretty darn healthy.
Here's why. I look at the schedule, and I look at the quarterbacks. To me, to get to that turnover mark, you're going to need the QBs to make some bad throws or make some bad decisions. And C.J. Stroud threw 5 last year. Jordan Love in the second half of the year was fantastic. And then you've got Chicago and Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, and you look at the history of Trevor Lawrence, just feasting on the zone defense from Gus Bradley. Got Will Levis, Tua can make mistakes, but not all the time. C.J. Stroud again. Sam Darnold could get you there. I mean, he's going to throw some picks. Josh Allen, I think that offense is going to look vastly different. It's going to be a lot of quick hitters and getting the ball out of his hands, so high percentage throws doesn't lead to turnovers, and he's actually pretty good in terms of limiting the fumbles. Aaron Rodgers, we know about Aaron Rodgers. Jared Goff indoors doesn't turn the ball over. So, you look at some of these teams and the quarterbacks you're going to be facing, not a lot of these guys turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to be banking on a lot of fumbles, in my opinion.
It's just 1.5 is not a ton. I mean, you just said half the league last year. I don't know. Rich, it's a Monday. I don't know if my brain can work any more than that.
3 would be Latu, 4 would be Taylor for me.
Yeah. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen, 107.5 The Fan. Tons of coverage all week long, Thursday night. That's an Amazoner, right? We're getting Michaels and Herb Street?
I got a PS from Rich, by the way.
Ooh.
Love the pod. Keep up the great work. And hopefully I can bump into you guys at the home opener week 1 against Houston. Flying in from New Jersey to see our team finally have a good start to the season. And Fantasy Football League this year?
Let's go, Rich. Rich, how about this?
I told him to hit either me up or hit you up, and we'll see if we can make something work.
Let's do it. But I like this more than anything. If they win week 1, Rich should be
banging the anvil week 2.
They should put him in the Ring of Honor. Now, I think Thursday night joint practice Colts Cardinals. There were literally Colts fans chanting "Let's go defense." There were
Really?
Colts fans mimicking the siren in the rain. Those fans, Irsay should put them season tickets for life.
Wow.
I think I'm serious with this.
What do you think about the new anvil spot, by the way?
I guess I don't have a strong opinion. I guess I'm good. Are you good?
I think it's fascinating. It's by the horseshoe on the, I don't know what end zone that is. The north?
Yeah, windows the north.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was always in that northeast corner, right?
Yeah, but like whomever was banging on the anvil, you could at least see it throughout the stadium, and
yeah.
But now they're kind of secluded. Yeah.
Who do you got week 1?
Ooh.
Fever got a game, right?
Well, it's got to be McAfee. It's always McAfee, right?
Yeah, it's got to be McAfee. Yeah. Got to be McAfee for sure. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen signing off. We'll talk to you Friday morning.